What career seems to attract an unlikely amount of idiots, despite of being intellectually demanding? School administrators. My significant other is a choir teacher, and this year her music department received a lot of funding from a donation. The music department made a list of things they need. The school admins completely ignored their list and bought a ton of new music stands and smart boards for the band and choir rooms. Now they still don't have the equipment they need, but they have so many music stands they had to put all of their old stands in storage. Edit: I'm 100% this is just incompetence or arrogance. I imagine the admins think they know better than a couple of teachers. I've worked non-profit. If you are going to donate money and you want it to go to something specific, you need to put it into a contract. Otherwise I will get blown on things that aren't needed. So much this. I was furious when I read articles about people who in the will gave money to their old school for a library, but since it was not a binding contract, they basically said duck the nerds and use the money for football bullshit. The great trick is to reduce the library budget by the amount of the gift and shunt that budget money to something useless. That's how they get around binding contracts. I've been working in special education for about a decade now, and I've found that it unfortunately attracts a lot of complete idiots. Schools are usually so desperate for support staff they'll pretty much hire anyway. Shit. I think the first district I worked for lucked out with me as being at the very least average, and based on my track record over the last decade. But the head of special education reached out to me after finding my job post on Craigslist. Back when you put position wanted ads in newspapers, I got a phone call from the school in the little town near me saying they had an opening for a teacher. Forget that I didn't have a degree, had no teaching experience, didn't major in the subject, and didn't want to be a teacher. They had a position open and a class with no teacher. It's a scramble every year of teachers jumping ship from one school to another and hiring new teachers who shouldn't even be in the field. I'm a teacher. At the end of the last school year, our admin team told us to tell any parent that was good with kids to apply for a teaching job. Why did I pay for a master's degree? Same here, lol. Studied like 6+ years just to be told in the end that someone untrained would be allowed to do the same job for a tiny bit less money. Law. So many idiots running around as pseudo-intellectuals who went to law school because they were good at arguing. So many attorneys don't realize it's not about arguing and being an asshole for the sake of being an argumentative asshole. It's about achieving resolution under the rule of law. The biggest offenders are the oldest attorneys who have got away with shit, practice for decades and now coast on their names while still practicing like it's 1982. Finance really runs the gamut from super bright to dumb as a hammer. Finance is confusing on purpose, lots of acronyms, lots of numbers, and requires salespeople. That's a potent recipe for sneaking dummies into an intellectually demanding profession. I used to work at a financial firm helping financial advisors manage their clients' accounts, and oh my god, some of them should not be allowed to handle other people's finances. There was one advisor who wanted to apply to trade options on some accounts, even though he didn't even know the basics of options, and no matter how many times it was explained to him, he just didn't understand. He wanted to apply for the highest level of options. That could seriously screw up someone's finances if done improperly. We did not approve him. Another advisor couldn't figure out how to print a form from our website. He called us for help, insisting it was a problem on our end. Turns out he didn't have the printer plugged in, and then it didn't even have ink. We asked him, after exhausting all other options, because we gave him the benefit of the doubt that he would have already checked. Another advisor, while super nice, couldn't figure out how to attach a file to an email, and I had to walk him through creating bookmarks to important pages on our site. I'm sure back in the day he may have been great, but in this day and age, where so much is done online and paper forms and documents are so much more susceptible to fraud, you just can't be computer illiterate. Another advisor kept getting mad at us, even though he kept bringing in the client into his office, filling out the form wrong, and having them sign it, and then sending it to us in a state we could not accept it. He was told several times what options on the form needed to be selected to do what they wanted, and instead of realizing he was doing something wrong, he just went off on us. But like, Without the client's signature on a proper form we legally couldn't do what he wanted. LOL. Basic reading comprehension would have solved his problem. Nurses. I've met a lot of really clever, friendly, helpful, and knowledgeable nurses. But for every one good nurse there's 5 ducking idiots, where you're amazed they are considered literate. There's also a bunch of older nurses who have been doing it for 20+ years and refuse to do any outside research, update their knowledge, and then try to give patients advice that can be proven to be terrible advice with 5 minutes on Google. After reading the comments, it's all careers. We are so overwhelmed by idiots that no career or corner of this planet is safe. But nurses seem to prevail as the most mentioned. So good luck with that information. Think of how stupid the average person is, and realize half of them are stupider than that. George Carlin. Nurses. I've had few amazing nurses, but most of the time, all the biggest bullies went to study nursing, and now there's an actual problem of workplace bullying in that field. When I went into labor, the first nurse I had to deal with was awful. She didn't believe my water broke, as I have a puddle of fluid flowing out of me. Then when she went to check to see how dilated I was, she couldn't locate my cervix and got super mad at me for it. It's not like I'm playing a prank and hid my cervix from you. This sounds like your fault, to be honest. You should have had your cervix out and ready to be looked at when you went in to get checked. Everybody knows that. All of them. People are dangerously adaptive, and even the dumbest with a will to live will manage somehow. May get heat for this one. But what can I say? I speak from real life experiences. Years of it. Folks in the military. For the members of the public who have never served, many view soldiers as these great, brave defenders of freedom. In reality, there is an unlikely amount who could not spell brave, defenders, freedom, or even of. There's a group referred to Asvab waivers. The Asvab is a test people take before joining the military, the most basic of an IQ test. The maximum score is 99. A score of 31 is all it takes to join the army. But there are waivers for people who can't even get 31, and people get those especially during wartime. Yet those same people are able to follow war strategies and complete missions. Unreal if you think about it. Also, fair warning to anyone who does not plan on going into the military: do not take the Asvab. In high school my JROTC buddy got me to take one, and I scored a 98. Really high score, but in all honesty it's a really easy test. I'm no genius by any stretch of the imagination. You would have thought the military had found the next Einstein. People showed up at my door asking if I planned on enlisting. I got, not exaggerating, thousands of emails from people about it, and they sent letters to my house at least weekly for about a year. In high school we had lots of army recruiters come to lunch at school. There was a 1% chance I was going to join the military. It was also just after the Iraq war started. But after looking at the sample Asvab questions, it did seem super easy, and I was curious what jobs I would be qualified for. Even years later, I'm still slightly curious what multiverse military me is doing. My friend who was joining the Navy convinced me not to take it. He's a good dude and knew what was up. Business management. Can confirm. Currently managing a business right now, and I'm an idiot. What has impressed me here is how difficult it can be to differentiate between idiocy and malice. Game development. In a college that offers it, and I've seen the most intelligent idiots around going for that major. And I'm one of the biggest intelligent idiots around. Yeah, I've seen this firsthand. I knew some people who wanted to go to that school in Seattle. Can't remember the name of it, but it basically feeds into Nintendo. A bunch of them were shocked that the application required them to do literally 1000 plus drawings. The only guy that made it was the one who was ready to do those drawings and just did it with no complaint. Shocking, but game development is a lot of work. 100% lawyers. I've probably met more dumb lawyers than smart ones. Tons of lawyers have a Rain Man level of savant knowledge about one narrow area and cannot wipe their own ass with instructions. But more common are lawyers who are just barely competent enough to keep their license, shuffling along doing the bare minimum, totally useless in court, never respond to emails, etc. We are a book smart but common sense and social skills dumb profession. If I ever manage to get my side gigs more successful, I'd happily leave. I stay in this career because I make a healthy salary with employee retirement contributions for basically high level proofreading and improv skills. Whenever lawyer comes up in a negative thread about careers, it's always another lawyer who posts it. And yet, as a lawyer, I couldn't agree more. Lawyers can be pretty uniquely dumb, myself included. This post taught me that everyone is an idiot. Teaching. While I've had some great teachers, some were absolute trash. I had a teacher who once taught a CAP extension course, which was essentially volunteering for the community. I can't remember fully, but I think in order to be considered for the class, you had to have a certain GPA. Regardless, the class consisted of all students with decent grades. We all had a giant group term project that we had to initially present to the class. In total, there were 6 groups to present over a class and half. When it came time to present, our teacher, who I'll call Ms. Aaron, said we would be grading our fellow classmates and their presentations. The first group was about to go up when she added in the fun little fact that we can only give one group 10, one group 9, 10 and so on. Well, as you can imagine, everyone flipped their shit. This was a class of high GPA earners, and telling them someone is going to get a 4, 10 didn't sit well with anyone. Miss Aaron started threatening people with zeros if no one went up, which only caused further havoc for the rest of the class. We just sat there all screaming at her while she screamed back at us. It was freaking mayhem. Obviously nothing was resolved as class ended, so we all just packed up our stuff and continued to talk about it for the rest of the day. The following morning, back we went to class, and instead of seeing Ms. Aaron, we saw the teacher who started the class, Miss Garfunkel. Miss Garfunkel started to lay into us about respecting our teachers, and Ms. Aaron is simply following the course outline. So if we don't like what is happening, we should see her, and we shouldn't attack Ms. Aaron. After her speech, a classmate ended up telling Ms. Garfunkel that we have no problem with the course, and it seems Ms. Aaron has spun a wildly inaccurate story. He ended up outing everything that occurred the following day. The look of utter shock on Ms. Garfunkel's face was beyond was telling. She clearly was given some bullshit story by Ms. Aaron. She excused herself, and for about 10 minutes we all just sat there before she re-emerged with Ms. Aaron. Ms. Garfunkel apologized for everything and said that you will be grading your fellow students whatever grade you see fit, and if there are any problems, to come see her directly. As she walked out, she side-eyed Ms. Aaron hard. I hated her so much for this, and also that she was upset I had missed a few days because I had 2 close relatives die a week apart. Restaurant owners. Somehow the most I've met are either or a dick who does not like to show what they do, or someone who does not know WTF he is doing. The problem is that so many people with absolutely zero qualification to open a restaurant somehow want to do exactly that. Politics. Surprisingly, industrial workers, electricians, carpenters, plumbers, mechanics, etc. You need a high amount of skill with math, common sense, working with your hands. The list goes on with the requirements you need to just begin in these jobs. Yet the amount of goddamn idiots I saw in these positions is hysterical. The amount of OSHA violations is amazing, especially the ones most people seem to think are too minor to be reported. The car business. Most are college high school dropouts that handle your personal private information, credit, contracts. I worked in the car business for 6 years across 3 states, and I've never met a more consistently low standard of employee. It's all about getting as much money as you can out of every single customer by any means necessary. Nursing. I have to say it, a lot of us are one half step away from needing to wear a permanent helmet. It, in most forms, is a very cognitively challenging job.